24. It's in the lower theater. There's a Zoom link on the agenda that can be found on rockbf.org at the website, and also a phone number is on the agenda also. So that being said, our first order of business tonight is to act as the Board of Liquor Commissioners, Liquor Control. We have 6 items for approval, and just if anybody knows that because we did not make the 48-hour timeline to put the agenda out, we will have to ratify any action we take tonight at the February meeting. Not a big deal, but that's where we're at, rather than just cancel it. Move it to another day. Oh, she's on? Okay.
She's on.
All right, so that being said, we have an application for a second-class license and tobacco license for BART Energy, application for tobacco license for Jiffy Mart, application for a tobacco license at 97 Westminster, that's Stanch's Place, I believe. Application for a second-class license, 59 the Square Halladay. Application for a first-class restaurant bar license. Application for a third-class restaurant bar license, that's 22 Rockingham Street, Wunderbar. And finally, we have an application for a third-class restaurant bar license for Donovan's. So we can do these all at once, or we can do them each singly.
Let's do them all at once.
All right, so someone make a motion to approve or disapprove or deny all 6 of the aforementioned
I
applications.
move that we approve all 6 of the aforementioned applications for liquor and tobacco licenses.
Okay, motions are being seconded to approve all 6 in one motion for the liquor and license applications. Any further discussion?
One question, which one is BART Energy?
That's the one up at the, where the town shed is up there.
Okay.
On 103. They have a little Jiffy Mart bar up there, I guess, you get sandwiches and stuff.
Okay.
Little gas station.
Yeah, it's a gas station. I'm not sure if you can tell to the public, but I know that gas people fill up trucks and stuff to the highway. They have all of the trucks up there from the bar that burn there, so. Okay, that being said, all those in favor of the approval of the liquor control would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
I have a question here from Jamie. I think he has his hand up. Hang on a second, I'll ask him to unmute. Jamie, can you hear us?
I can. Pretty big echo tonight, but Peter, can we go back to your opening statement regarding the agenda not meeting the 48 hours, and it's
Right.
no big deal?
It's according to what I read on the statute for a handbook for open meeting law, as long as you have adopted a specific date and time for for meetings, that's an exception to the open meeting law. So we're not in violation of an open meeting law, but we did not make the 48-hour, even though you are not violating the open meeting law. In order for the public to have enough advance notice that you're having a meeting and what's on the agenda has to be posted 48 hours before your meeting. It did not get posted until Monday noon.
Okay,
So we can have a meeting, and then we have to ratify any of the actions such as the liquor control we just did, and anything else we vote to pass tonight has to be ratified at our next select board meeting.
oh, and I understand that portion of it. However, are we or are we not, as a town and village, looking to increase participation with meetings and town meeting? Because I looked on Friday in the hopes that something would be posted, because last week the Bellows Falls on the calendar on the website didn't even show there was a meeting. I had to go in and search for the agenda. So if we're looking to increase participation, we have to give the citizens and the voters time to see that there's a meeting coming up, and maybe or maybe not that they'll make a note and go, oh, listen, it's Thursday night and we've got a meeting next Tuesday, so we should mark that and attend or something, right?
Point taken.
No,
But
just consistency.
You know, like I say, the town hall was closed Friday, the holiday was Monday, Scott was out of town, so there was nobody really to post the agenda in time for the meeting, so that's where we're stuck on this one.
But so last Tuesday night, you agreed to what the next meeting or whatever was going to be and what was going to be on the agenda. So would it be that difficult to put it together in, say, 48 hours, and that would have given you Wednesday and Thursday and somebody could have posted it? Or, not to be settled right now, just the question, right?
Oh, that's the ideal situation, but there are times that something comes in on a Friday, so generally the posting doesn't get done till either late Friday or sometimes on a Saturday, so that gives you Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday for the meeting.
So with that, with the town hall closed on Fridays, so did we look back now that we're out of the COVID to going back to a 5-day work week? So individuals that, their only day available to go down to the town hall to do business, are we going to go back to that, or are we still going to stay at 410s?
I'll refer to Scott on that one. He's the manager, controls that situation.
We're doing 410s, Jamie.
Okay, and I know at some point, a couple of 3 months ago, that was brought up of, are we going to go back to that? So is that just a decision by you? Is it union? Is it, how does that work? Because I know you had to go to the unions or whatever during the COVID to get approved for 410s. And I mean, I know that there's a lot of folks out there that, appreciated having it available 5 days a week. So, but.
The 410s you speak of actually pertain to the highway department, because during the summer, we had those guys work 4 10-hour days, and then because of the darkness and the time schedules limits, they go back to a 5-day week. In November, was it, I think?
So you can tell me that, Peter, but the town hall used to be open 5 days prior. And you can shrug and everything. We're not going to settle it here, but it was a question that was raised a couple of months ago, and I was just wondering where that was, Peter. So understand you're working 410s with no real explanation of why we're not going back to 5/8s.
Well, I'd say, all I can tell you is that when COVID hit, they went to 4 10-hour days. And we've been struggling to go back to the 5 days. I don't know why, but as the board does not control the employees, the manager's in charge of hiring, firing, and whatever. So we've been trying to get something done there, and I don't know what the sticking point is, but that's all I can tell you.
I'd like to say, Scott, I had a meeting a couple months ago with Megan and Betsy and showed them how to put a calendar on that website. So you would see every month when all the meetings are. And you wouldn't necessarily have the agenda, but it would be very clear but they never did it, so I don't know why. If they need a refresher, I'll be glad to come down and
Sure, that would be great.
I don't know who's responsible for
I
hosting
think Megan is now, right, Scott?
It depends. Sometimes it's Gary, sometimes it's Megan, sometimes it's Betsy.
Laughing at the door.
Right.
Yeah, well, I talked to Gary. Gary said he really wanted to see a calendar.
Right.
I think calendar would be really helpful.
We used to have one.
I know.
So,
And I
anyway.
made one when I first made the site, but Chuck took it away, I think.
Okay, we got a little kilter there, but, because the meeting, actually, select board meeting was not called to order, but that being said, I'll call it to order at this point, and we'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes of January 2nd, 2024. Or is it, this says 20234.
Yeah, I moved that we approve the minutes of January 2nd, 2024.
I second that motion.
And the typo there, it says 2031 there.
Yeah, just change that.
Okay.
Okay, motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of January 2nd. Are there any corrections, deletions, omissions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes would say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay.
Aye.
And Scott, thank you. Do you have the liquor control stuff for us to sign eventually when you get there?
Yep.
All right, we'll get those at the end of the meeting. All right, let's go to additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters and pressing matters that will require ratification at a future meeting. I have none. Scott?
No.
Board?
Nope.
Okay, moving right along to public comment on items not on the agenda. 3 minutes per person. Seeing the big crowd here, nobody else can see it, but there is a big crowd, but nobody actually. So, Sue, you have anything? Addition? Public comment?
No, I'm all set, thanks.
Hearing none, let's move on to the manager's report. There is a update sheet that Scott kindly puts into this thing, so you can follow the agenda items and as you get to them and go from there. So
Just, I guess, a couple of operational issues. You know, we are in our snow season, and so we do appreciate when folks cooperate and move their cars and keep the roads clear so that guys can come and plow. Today's storm was a little longer than expected. I think it was originally forecast as just sort of a minor storm, and I think it's been snowing most of the day, so we'll be able to clean it up. And just, I guess, for the public's best interest, it's always helpful when there are not obstructions, so we can plow the roads from curb to curb and then be able, in the big storms, to come back and pick up the snow. I don't think this storm will qualify for that, but we do appreciate when everybody does pay attention when guys are out working in the right of way. We're going to talk a little bit later on in the meeting, so I won't get into specifics about our downtown and some of our pedestrian concerns. I think we have some information that the board wants to discuss under other business, so I'll hold some of my other comments until then.
Scott, one question.
Yes.
In terms of the website, we need to update some of the personnel on the website too. For example, the highway superintendent, now is Glenn on a probationary status? Or
Yes, he's not permanent.
Okay, so whenever, I noticed a couple of the names that need to be updated.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know, do we now have the dates when the transfer station is open and closed? I don't think that's on there. People are always confused whenever there's
they
a,
usually practice when they post it the day before they're gonna be closed, and they put it up there for a couple of days. It's on the post on the garbage disposal and also on the recycling bin.
yeah, but like there's basic holidays, you know. I don't think it's posted anywhere.
Yeah, there are a lot of questions when we call from people call me and say, is
Yeah,
it?
do you know if it's open today? It's like, I don't
I
know.
say, check the website.
Yeah, do we usually have a set schedule for which holidays the transfer station is closed?
It's always open on a Saturday. It's never open on a Monday if it's a holiday. That's
Oh, but if it's a
tradition.
holiday on Saturday, it will be open?
We traditionally will be open on a Saturday. Because most holidays that are celebrated are Friday or Monday. So most of the time they're open on that Saturday.
Well, like Christmas and New Year's are different, you know. Yeah, so I don't know, okay, but
Right, it's the
people,
Monday holidays, and I think, that they're never open on a traditional Monday holiday.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, that might be another thing to add onto the town calendar.
Sure.
Yeah, it would be really good to, people are always asking that.
Right.
Yeah, here on the website, it says the center is open Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday from 8 AM to 1 PM.
Right.
Right.
That's all it says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we all set with that? Let's move on to the regular agenda, which will be to approve the final town meeting warning and articles. There is a corrected version in front of you with some few.
Right. So I think Elijah had pointed out I had the incorrect, on your signature page, on the last page, I had changed his title to the appropriate title. He is vice chair, so that has been changed. We did add, since the last time we spoke, all of the individual articles for the social services levy. So you now see that you have 30 articles for town meeting.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, goody.
Question, Scott. So Peter's gonna make an introduction to explain, because there are a lot of people who are gonna go, what the hell?
no, it's policy, but it's gonna get interesting when everybody introduces a motion, because they're gonna have to explain, all of them are not right now are level funded with the exception of Parks Place, who's desperately trying to get petition signed.
Yeah,
And everybody else is gone back to level funding because they don't want to do petitions.
right.
The only one we gotta decide on is the visiting nurses.
Right.
And that one there is just like, pick a number. The recommendation from the, review committee was to drop it to 15,000.
Yeah.
But after listening to Mr. Knox last meeting, you know,
It's a hard call.
well, it's a tough call. We can make suggestions, say, cut it to 20,000, and somebody else is gonna say, no, level funding. So that's where we go. I mean, that's how we do those. That's.
Right.
So in each of these, people can send something on you, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a mix of interesting.
And you'll explain that the committee and acknowledge and thank the committee.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Yeah, we gotta do that. I've
One of the
already.
questions that we had for you tonight is how do you want to approach the written recommendations of the review committee? Because they wouldn't necessarily be in your annual town report, but they could certainly be available at the meeting if people so felt that that was something that you wanted to
Yeah,
have as a handout.
they produced a sheet that said what they were gonna fund.
There
and
was
what
a
they
sheet
weren't
of
gonna fund.
recommendations.
So I think we had that as a handout sheet.
That might be a good
It's
idea.
just, well, maybe just one page, so.
Yeah, it's just like,
That'd be a good idea.
But I think what we say, when each article goes up, you can just say, this has been recommended to be level funded by the review committee and the board agrees. And then it goes to, Paul will say, we'll put it up for vote.
Okay.
and what about the ones that aren't recommended for the,
Well, there are three of them, if you remember, they didn't do anything with, I think. I can't remember the three that they left blank.
yeah.
They didn't know what they wanted to do with that. I don't know if they didn't have enough information. to
And
make
what
it.
about the senior center review?
Senior Center said they're fine with level funding. I talked to the
really?
lady up there and she's fine with it.
Okay.
So they will be in this. Like I say, the only one that's different, or Senior Solutions wanted an increase, but they didn't want to do a petition, so they just backed off. Moore they're looking for $375, didn't think it was worth the petition to get $275, so they backed off, they're level funded. Another one that's looking for an increase, and they'll have to get a petition by Thursday, is Parks Place. They want to go from 4,000 to 5,000. But they have to, the warning will list it as 4,000, but then someone will have to, from Park Place, hopefully is gonna be there with a petition in hand saying, we have a legal petition, meaning all the signatures are legal, to increase it to $5,000. And then Paul will just say, okay, we have a petition, blah, 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 and then he'll put it up. Does everybody wanna, with the second motion, raise it to 1,000, then everybody votes on the amendment, then you vote on the motion that say approve 5,000. Everybody else is legal. In between now and then, I get to pick who gets what one.
Ooh,
But we'll go over it. I won't stick with anybody you don't want.
And it would be good to explain how the commission was formulated, and is it Deb Wright, who else was there? Was it?
Jonathan Wright and Catao put it down.
Yeah, do we want to say, here's the committee that did
Yeah,
it?
but I think Debbie was gonna be there, and I'm not sure if Jonathan was gonna be there also, so we may have some support from them
Okay,
at the same time, so.
very good.
We'll see when we get to that point, I guess.
All right,
All right, so we need a motion to approve the town warning. And we do go second this year, just so you know.
so I move that we approve the warning for the town meeting to be held on March 4th.
We're second.
I will second it.
Okay, motion's made and seconded to approve the town meeting warning as presented. The only question I have is, we're gonna adjourn to the Masonic Temple to vote at 9 o'clock. Is it 9 they're starting to open the polls down there? I thought it was usually 8.
I thought she said 9, but I'll double check.
Well,
that
it
with
could be,
Kathleen.
she may have changed it, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll double
Maybe, I
check
know
that.
there was some controversy over the start time down there.
Right.
So, at one point, but I just happened to notice it said 9, I thought usually it's 8. I didn't look at last year's town report to see what that one
Yeah,
said.
I copied the same thing from last year, but I'll double check there to
Yeah.
make sure the times are
Okay,
correct.
it may have been 9 o'clock also done last year too, I don't know.
I think it was, I think it was.
I think it was too, Peter, but I don't remember.
Something about the town crew setting up all the signs in our parking, blocking off the parking down there for voters to,
Right. In the
I think
morning.
it's something to do with that, so. Okay, motion made, seconded. All those in favor of approving the town warning as presented, would say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Susie,
Aye.
on board? Motion carries.
Yeah, I'm here.
Now, we have town warning now, did you?
You want to do the signature page, and then we'll make the corrections to the articles that had the typo.
All right, you
and
got the
I'll double
original,
check
right?
the time.
You got one over there?
I do have one
Okay.
here, so if
You
you
can
just
get
want to sign
back
that.
around.
And, sorry, one question back up a little bit. Article 29 about the Wyndham County Sheriff. Is anyone going to be here to represent the Sheriff's Department to make the pitch, or will you do that, Scott?
I'll ask them to come,
Okay.
yes. I know last time we did ask them to
Right.
come,
Okay, thanks.
so.
Probably like
There'll be a battle.
11:30 PM by the time we get
Get
to
to
it.
it, no, thank you.
Good God, help us. I can't stay up that late.
Well, you're gonna have to, we'll put the, Rick and I will put you in, we'll get all wacky, you wacky.
I usually put my shoes on to go out dancing at 11 o'clock at night, but,
Like I said, well, it could be contentious school board meeting, because the
Yeah, I
school
know.
board, it went up $500,000, and
know.
they kept some of those ESSER positions that were paid for by ESSER funds, and this high school eliminated most of them, and so I don't know what they're gonna do there. It's, you know, when you talk 6 cents on the budget, on the tax rate, you've gotta really, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not for me to say. So, now let's move on to the approved application for BRIC grant, Route 121 Culverts. There's information in your packet.
So we've been in communication with folks, and these are federal funds for this BRIC grant. And because of the timing that it takes to implement all the phases of the grant, they recommended that we do this as a implementation grant first, so that we can get all of the hydrology done, the construction estimating done, and the engineering work done, and then apply for a second round of funding, which would be for the specific culverts that are recommended once it goes through the benefit cost analysis necessary to qualify for the grant funds from the BRIC program. So BRIC is just building resilient infrastructure for communities, so that's just another acronym for a federal program. That being said, we are still waiting. And sometimes our federal partners are a little slow. We're still waiting to hear on our Leach Road application that we had submitted a while back. So that's, almost $1 million for those 3 culverts. I can reasonably assume that these won't be much cheaper than those. So you're probably looking at a $500,000 plus upgrade to those 2 structures on 121. So it's a cumbersome process, but with the amount of money we're talking about and the long-term implications of us trying to pave roads and maintain that infrastructure, it's worth the extra time and effort to try and get these funds to see if we can get these culverts upsized with some of the storm events we've been experiencing. I think these are going to become more and more of our priority as we go forward in this new climate.
So this scoping, the budget here, it's $57,750, is that just for the scoping project part of this?
That is to
I
do,
know you said there's gonna be a couple, 300,000.
that's to do the hydrology analysis, the benefit cost analysis, the construction estimating, and all of the other required sizing for the culverts themselves.
And the proposed federal share is 41,250, and the town has to cough up 13,750.
Yes.
I'm not,
Yep.
I don't see a signature page on this anywhere.
It's an online submission. The only
Okay.
thing I wanted to have is just a resolution of support from the board, so that if we're successful, that will be what we'll use to go forward when I bring you a grant agreement for your final authorization for the expenditure.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the BRIC application and authorize the manager to sign said document. It's a online document.
I've got a question. Should I wait
Yep.
till the motion's already on there?
Yeah, let's get a second, then you can,
All right. I'll second.
all right, discussion.
Okay, discussion. When the V-Trans people were here talking about the new culvert under 91, they talked about leaving the bottom open for wild creatures are better off than having a solid piece of concrete there. They also talked about having it the same level so there's not a big drop off. Is that what I noticed that there's a big drop off in the picture of the guy standing next to
Yeah,
2 foot.
yeah, you can see there's a significant elevation change there.
So what do we, and you said and here it says it's easier to flush if the bottom is open?
For these two specific culverts, I think the question's gonna be, well, first of all, the hydrology is gonna determine the width and the height, right? How much water we're gonna carry there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the other issues that A&R will want us to look at, and it'll be part of the entire scoping study, will be if there are any endangered species, any other wildlife considerations. So they'll take a look at all of that, Rick,
Okay,
and make sure that we design that into our final project.
great.
So we'll have all that permit ready, so there won't be any concerns if we get back to the scoping portion, you'll have a fully designed, fully compliant, ready to go project for bidding.
Great.
And Scott, if the BRIC grant is approved for the scoping study, when would we expect to go back for the second round of applications for the construction?
They've been doing the BRIC grants annually, so I would assume we would do the next round as soon as they open that up for consideration.
So then probably next year.
Probably early next year, because each disaster usually has a round of these that are funded. Since we just had another federal disaster declaration from July, we should have more BRIC money probably earlier than this time through.
So you had mentioned that this was going to be a key aspect of cooperating with Westminster on the repaving of 121. Are there any culverts on their end that have to be taken care of before you can repave?
I have to talk to their town manager. He's pretty new out there. I'm sure their highway probably has some places that they'd like to upsize, take a look at.
We met the walk bike people. We met with him last week and had a great conversation. He's a really good guy. And I mentioned to him that about I don't want to give you a call about the 121.
I think there's a manager's, we meet sometimes periodically, the Southern Vermont group, but I think next Wednesday we're getting together. And I was hoping he was going to be there. We've talked or emailed back and forth, so.
Because if they don't do their culverts, then we can't cooperate with repaving because they'll have to happen at different times, right?
Well, what they'll do is they'll just pave them at existing, and then if there's a major storm, it washes over the road and washes away all that work you just did, which is incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
That's really,
So that's why planning in advance and
the
cooperation.
hydrology of these things are really key. They're critical.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, at this point, Scott, you have the status of major capital projects. Did you want to speak to that or just?
Well, I put that in there for a couple reasons for the board, just because since we're tracking so many projects, and I know periodically people ask you guys what's going on with various projects that they might have a particular interest in. So I wanted to bring these up to date, because a lot of these have substantial costs associated with it, right? So the next big one that we're waiting on is this FHWA Protect grant. This is, you can see, almost $2 million worth of improvements around the drainage around our industrial park. We have the state portion secured, which is great, almost $400,000, but we need that federal funding to make that project ready to go for the next stage of design. So again, the federal authorizations, they follow a different path. It's a little bit frustrating at times, but that has been submitted for a period of time as well. The Opera House, we're hopeful that things will get some notice to proceed here fairly soon on our next round of insulating our roof. And then we just got the RFP for opportunities for alternative energy in public buildings. So each school and each local jurisdiction will have an opportunity to apply for funds for a project up to, I believe it's $250,000 per location. So I'm hoping that we can be able to access some of those funds and talk about some sort of alternative energy, either on the roof here or some other modifications to the heating plant or something else in this building. There's all sorts of things. It's not just solar. There's other options that are available, so we can take a hard look at that and see if we can become more energy efficient. And that grant just got noticed this week, and I think it's open through the end of March. So we'll have to do a little bit of work to get that one put together and brought forward. So the good news is the board did fund the previous work on all of the structural improvements, so we're at a point where the roof can support any of these additional types of arrays. So we're in a good place with that. So we can really hopefully maximize that grant opportunity.
Scott, would heat pumps make any sense for this building?
Heat pumps are eligible for that. So that's something we'll also take a look at to see if that's an alternative. They have, they have wood pellets, they have other wood-based types of heating options as well as heat pumps.
A
So,
little wood stove in this room would be nice.
I was just thinking an open pit, just an open pit flame would be nice.
You know, those microphones that fake, they get just looking at the flame will warm them up.
Yeah, it can get a little chilly down here.
What's this T8 grant, that church place? I know
That's
the
a
schools are
transportation
involved on that,
alternatives, and that's the one we talked about way back in the fall.
and there's a 20% match, the school helping out with the match, or is that all on the town?
Well, we're doing multiple ways to match that money. The school
Okay.
has work they're doing with drainage and some improvements. We have work we're doing on sidewalks in that area as well, and then also some of the paving, and then there's money in there for new sidewalks and ADA compliant curb cuts and some other things that we submitted. So that's going to be, again, that's a fairly large grant, and we're waiting to hear on that one as well. The train station, we're going to have some additional information from Gary at one of our next meetings about some of the things we have to do to finalize after we do this, the first phase of the purchase and sale agreement tonight. And then the meeting house, again, they're working through the next round of funding, which is the sesquicentennial grant funds. So that is ongoing, and I don't have a date yet on when that is supposed to be complete, but I know Walter's already started working on that, so we'll bring you something fairly soon as to what he anticipates, what's the scope of work, and then ultimately how much additional money he might need for that. So keep an eye out on those as well.
Okay, any questions? Anybody?
The Energy Committee of the Conservation Commission is very interested in the town's energy consumption. And I'm wondering, Scott, if it would be helpful to help bring those guys into the discussion of how the town hall, how many thousand gallons of oil we keep this building burn?
Boy, in a cold winter, that's, we spend, because we end up filling up 2 tanks, those two, and they alternate between those 2 500-gallon tanks, so we can easily do 8,000 or 10,000 gallons of oil in a winter here, depending on how cold it
And
is.
that's like, that's like $3 a gallon, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah, well, it's definitely,
varies
it varies, yeah.
on the bid.
So that could be a significant energy saving as well as an environmental impact that we could reduce.
Hopefully, once the insulation is on the roof, that will,
Should help,
Yeah.
that'll make a difference.
And the windows, if we finish the windows project, that helps. I mean, there's lots of weatherization we
Those are
can
probably the
do
biggest things.
on this building, but an insulated roof and better windows would be a huge help
Yeah.
in terms of our energy efficiency, for sure.
Okay, anything else? Okay,
That
let's
was
move
it.
on to the next item, which will be review draft lease and purchase agreement for the train station. It's in your packet.
So really what we're doing tonight is, we don't have the full conveyance. All this does is open up with the option, it opens up a 6-month period for us to finalize the lease, bring that back to the board for the final purchase and sale, as well as the other lease requirements that we have to have with our state and the Mountain and Railroad. So what this does is kick off that 6-month period, if the board so approves this. There is a $10,000 option that we would be executing. We fully anticipate that we won't lose that option, that we will obviously ultimately buy the station within this period and then begin the next phase of our renovations that we have talked about in previous meetings. Really, the other reason this is critical for us is the Northern Borders money, which is one of the major pieces of the next phase of renovation, beyond the work that's Wyndham Regional is going to be doing on the remediation work. To unlock that $350,000, you have to go through a full federal NEPA process. So we have some of that work done. We'll finish that work. And so then that'll open up that additional money. So this $250,000 purchase, if you remember, we had the $75,000 that was authorized at the town meeting. We have downtown transportation funds, which will pay for a balance of that purchase price. And then we have other funds that are then into that next phase of the renovations from Wyndham Regional plus the Northern Borders monies. And then that kicks us into the third phase, which is the Chrissy grant, which is the 1.8 million, and that's a whole separate discussion as we get into that round of the funding. So this really kicks off the clock for really, I think, our next, we'll be getting out of some of the softer sort of work and into, I think, real schedules for work that can be done. So it's I think the timing is right to move this thing forward.
Question for Scott?
Yep.
So the state of Vermont owns the surrounding land, including what's under the platforms, is that right?
Yes.
So if we want to work on their land and we don't own it, how does that work?
Well, it gets complicated because the railroad, and this is why it's complicated. So the entire parcel, if you look at the entire parcel, if we had done just a straight purchase, say we want to buy the land and the buildings, we're not exempt from cleanup requirements that the railroad is. So that would immediately kick off a huge environmental cleanup of the rail yards and the areas around there, making this cost prohibitive. I don't even know or can't even estimate what they would want to do all that work. So what it really does, though, is open up with this lease. It gives us access to the building, which is what we've always wanted to have. It gives us the ability to make the modifications and the updates to the building that the board ultimately chooses to do. As well as we're working with them in partnership because they're separately doing the platform renovations. So it's being coordinated, but it's not work that's being either issued or done by the town. It's being done through the state of Vermont. And so we have to work with them on that work, as well as signal upgrades in that location. There's some signal project work that's being done, so we're working with them on that work as well. So all that other coordination, Rick, is really, you have to bring the agencies together and then try to work in cooperation to make sure that all of those things are being handled.
Where does Amtrak enter the picture?
Obviously, they run the service, but in relationship to their actual impacts, we don't have a lot of direct relationship with Amtrak. I mean, the only thing we do is open up the station for waiting periods. They come with the train, people board, then they leave. We close the station, and then when they come back in the evening, we do the same thing. So really, it's more of a sort of a secondary relationship with Amtrak. It's the most significant we have is the Vermont rail system and with Green Mountain Railroad.
Okay, and will there any place for someone to stand out of the rain while they're waiting for a train? Can we put an awning out over there? Because
not under cover. That was one of the arguments we had, and we went round and round with the historical, all of the impacts of putting shed roofs on, and the railroad would not budge that it was a visual obstruction and was going to impact the ability of the freight locomotives to see the signals. And we could not convince them otherwise. So we will not have any covered areas on the building itself. They'll still be in the building, they'll be covered areas, but there will not be anything outside.
What a shame.
And I think that you and Gary put a lot of effort into trying to get the railroad to agree to
It was
having the
frustrating. We made every effort we could trying to do that because we thought it was historically important as well as I like the look. I thought it looked nice with the shed roofs, but could not get them to budge.
And Brattleboro's doing what is it? $8 million project down there? It's
$10 million.
Yeah, it's going to start this spring, right?
Yeah. A little different there because of the ownership of the land and that whole situation. So.
Yeah.
Okay, we all set with that one? Let's move on to review.
Hang on, I think Jamie had a question, and I think before.
Who does?
Jamie had a.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Shoot, Jamie.
Yeah, so back the original presentation for the purchase of of the rail station and everything. So the original document for phase 1 and the project was put out February 19th of 22. And then February 22nd of 22, that presentation was done in a Bellows Falls trustees meeting. And of course, March of 22, we approved the 75K for the purchase. How much of that 75K 2 years later do we have? Is the 75, because we haven't made the purchase, so do we have the total 75,000 sitting there?
Yes. That's been reserved. Those monies have not been used for anything. They were only reserved for purchases.
All right, and now we're going to look at funding another 150,000 for phase 2, and we haven't got phase 1 done yet. And understandable, we're trying to get everything aligned. However, during that presentation, it was either John, Jack, or Steve, I can't remember after watching the video now, but they were talking about the geotechnical testing and everything, the core boring of the land around there, and it was required to do prior to the purchase of the building because of all these grants and the money's coming, especially dealing with the state. And Gary's updated sheet, it looks like we're going to purchase this building as soon as we can now. However, the geotechnical doesn't even come up until September of 24 or July of 25. How's that going to impact us if we purchase this and then all of a sudden we find out that there's issues and, just like the high school, we've got PCD issues that they've resolved. What happens if we purchase this and then, 6 months from now, all of a sudden we have issues that we're waiting on, Amtrak or whoever's going to own the property to clean it up for us before we can proceed.
When that presentation was made, Jamie, the assumption was that we would be working in cooperation with the platform project to include some sort of sheltering roof structure. And so the geotechnical was there to provide support to whatever would be available to people either on the platform or outside the building, as Rick had asked earlier, so that people could be outside and away from the weather. But since the railroad refused to authorize any visual obstructions on the building or outside of the building, that geotechnical work in terms of what the town wanted to do isn't relevant to anything in terms of our purchase or operation of the building. Because all of our outside or inside the building itself. The exterior work now by others, so that won't be a concern since we can't do any kind of shed or any kind of cover.
So one of the first remodel parts of this is going to be working on the bricks that are decaying and wearing away right at the base. What happens if that turns in, they start removing bricks and it turns into more of a project to where we have to start digging around, right? I mean, I'm just looking at the what ifs, because they're going to do extensive work around to replace the bricks on the foundation. So that's pretty close to the ground. And if all of a sudden they say, hey, the footing is bad or the foundation, and we have to dig into that, that's not talking canopy. That's talking a big issue that we're going to have to depend on our leaser to take care of so we can carry on with the project, right? I mean, there's that potential out there that when they start removing bricks, that, cornerstones or something of the building aren't going to be adequate anymore, or they're decayed just like the brick is.
I know there's been preliminary work done, Jamie, on all of the engineering, but like in any project with an old building, there's always unforeseen problems. I think we're fairly confident that most of any of the unforeseens right now that we think we're going to run into are going to be more interior than anything that's going to be exterior. And we've already done pretty extensive work already in terms of what remediations are necessary. So I feel pretty good that we're not going to run into a showstopper. But on a project of a building of this age, you can never say everything 100% for sure. is going to follow directly as we anticipate. So those are
Right.
concerns. Press them if we run into them.
Right, and my concern is the original presentation in February of 22, the line item for hazardous abatement was 50,000, and that was mostly mentioned as asbestos in the interior to the building. However, the line item now on Gary's updated spreadsheet, which is on the website, is now at 300,000, right? So, I mean, I understand things change. However, we're going to start getting deeper and deeper into this. So I appreciate your due diligence.
That changed specifically, Jamie, because we were required to do air testing. And because of some of that air testing, they come up with some additional remediation that we had to do in the building, some vapor barrier and some other work. So that's where that additional cost came from. So
Well,
and it was not known at the time of that presentation, that work was not known. So, but the board has been updated since. So I do understand that, you know, when you timestamp or you look at something in a time, you know, we have found out more information since then, obviously. And it certainly does change some of the parameters of the project.
Right, and and I appreciate the due diligence. I'm just saying, in February, at the time of that presentation, it was expected that we were going to purchase the building in July, and construction and refurbishment could start as early as November and December of 22, right? And I understand that there was a lot of hurdles to go over and everything else with the state and the railroad and everybody else, and then, you know, changing the whole format of grants and what we're going to go after. So, you know, we're getting really close here to the purchase, and I just hope that, you know, nearly 2 years later that, you know, we do have those I's dotted and the T's crossed. So, and I do appreciate it. And I'm not trying to be overly critical. I'm just looking at what's the worst that could happen. So thank you.
Well, I think another piece of this, if I understand correctly, Scott, is the Northern Borders Regional Commission grant. We cannot commit funds to the purchase of the property until we have a notice to proceed from the commission, and they require the NEPA process and I believe 30% design to be completed.
Correct.
Before they give the notification to proceed. So a lot of those, you know, anything that we don't know about now, we will pretty much, you know, have ironed out before the actual purchase happens.
Yeah, in order to, right. Worst case scenario, we go through the remainder of the 30% design, we go through the remainder of the NEPA, and we find something that was unanticipated or an expenditure that puts the project in a much different footing, and then the board has to make a decision as to whether or not they want to consummate the purchase in 6 months or decide that we can't do this project based on the costs or whatever the contingency might be.
So what we're approving is to put down like a $10,000 deposit then, right? Is that right?
Basically, that's what the money is.
Yeah.
It's an option.
So if all
Right.
this stuff goes to hell and we say, you can't even do it, we might lose 10,000.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's all we're really looking at right now.
And then you'd have a $75,000 reserve for taxpayers for the purchase of a building, which I think you'd have to make some decisions on
What you want to do with
what you would want to do with that money, since it was specifically reserved for a purchase of a specific
Right.
property.
So that's what the situation is, that just to let Jamie know what
Right.
we're debating tonight.
Right,
We're debating that $10,000 deposit.
yes. And kicking off that 6-month period
Right.
to finalize.
Well, that's reassuring that we have a fail-safe there, so to make a deposit, and then if something drastic happens, that we have an out. So thank you very much for that clarification.
Yep. Yeah, and really, I mean, to get the notice to proceed, you know, that's a pretty in-depth investigation, so we're not going to be going into this with our eyes closed. There's going to be a lot of due diligence done before we actually sign any paperwork.
Yes, definitely. And that 30% design in the NEPA will all come through a public hearing process. It'll have to come to the board. There'll be multiple steps to this before we get to a final purchase and sale.
Do we need a motion?
Yes, please, since we're dealing with an authorization, the $10,000.
So,
So you want to authorize me to sign the real estate option agreement as well as the expenditure of the $10,000 for the option, for the execution of the option period.
I move that we authorize our town manager to execute the purchase agreement option for the Bellows Falls train station. And what else did I say?
That sounds good.
Is that it?
Sounds like it.
And authorize the $10,000 for the
Yeah.
execution of
And
the
authorize
purchase option.
$10,000 as our purchase option deposit.
I'll second that, and I have a question.
Okay,
We get the $10,000, I'll say, I second, that's written down. We get $10,000 back if through no fault of our own, the deal collapses.
The option is for the specific purpose to closing. There are some items in here, BRIC, where if there are things beyond, force majeure types of things, where I think we would get our $10,000 back. But for the most part, we're on a course here to buy this building, short of a catastrophe. So, yeah.
And then secondary question for Gary, we're just reading about what Brattleboro got, and they got, Vermont Agency of Transportation has been kicking in a lot of money to historic preservation. I mean, there's all kinds of, to assemble $10 million. The next station south of here, I'm just amazed that we can't, and maybe it's a Gary question, but.
Well, don't forget, we have $1.8 million pending the next, from Federal Railroad, it's called CRISI grants, it's another acronym. So that's $1.8 million.
But the Vermont Agency of Transportation, are they kicking in anything?
Not on that particular grant, no. That one's through the railroad.
They're already making
does
it work.
beg the question, what do we, chop liver or what?
Exactly.
I mean,
Well, they're already giving us a bunch of millions for the bridge. Maybe they figure,
that's gonna do the railroad station though. That's a different horse,
Yeah,
a
there's
different
different pieces to this, right? I mean, you do have monies from downtown, the DTF, the Downtown Transportation Fund, which does have some DOT aspect to it. You've got money from Northern Borders Regional Commission. Obviously, we have some taxpayer money in here. We have Wyndham Regional money for cleanup, and we have $1.8 million from CRISI.
And the State Historic Preservation Office and the National Park Service are working down there. I mean, I'd love to see Gary, if we tapped all the space.
I think Gary.
I know we've been banging those folks pretty hard with the
Gary has-
meeting house and a lot of other projects, and we'll certainly keep trying to get as much money as we can.
Yep.
So we'll definitely take a look, Rick, if there's some options for other sources of funds, we'll certainly try to exhaust every avenue we can.
Good.
So, to follow further, I'm probably gonna irritate or get Jamie started again, but this train station grant match down there, a large FRA grant for station improvements, leaves an unfunded balance of about $350K. And then says, we request a bond authorization of $175K. So is that something that's come down the road, as Jamie brought up at the last meeting, that is gonna add more to this, or is that covered by grant money, or?
Well, we did ask for some money if you were on this warning for some additional funds.
Right.
Yep. So there is some money that will be going towards that. So there is a request for a 5-year grant bond for the train station for purposes of public improvements for $150,000.
125?
It's $150,
150,
right.
okay.
So we still have work to do here.
Okay, back to the motion. Motion remains seconded to approve the real estate option agreement and authorize expenditure of $10,000 deposit. And have the manager sign said document. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay.
Aye.
So, time delay, huh?
I lost her earlier, she.
All right, let's move on to Article 4.
My hand was up. Sorry, Peter, but just for clarification in a public meeting, so right now, we've agreed that the $10,000, secures it, then we have the 6-month period. So then we have the 75,000 that's already reserved. We're gonna be looking at 150,000 as an article and a warrant or whatever. So altogether, we're all in at 225 for the purchase and renovations. And per the last meeting, we didn't expect any more expenditures right now, even though there's a stage 3 that says 375K total, I guess, but the 225, we're all in, Scott, and we don't expect to need to come back for any more phases. Is that part of the 75 for purchase and 150 for the renovations? Is that a total for the town, 225K as we see it today?
No, there'll be some more costs, Jamie, on design and engineering. I don't have the final cost on that to get to the 30% design because there's a local share on that. So.
And I think that some of that, appropriating some money from ARPA funds to cover some of that.
Correct. It won't be taxpayer money, Jamie, but there will be some additional appropriation.
Okay, so understand as of January 16th of 24, 225, we're all in as a taxpayer, and we expect all the additional funding and buy-in to any additional grant matches or whatever to come from ARPA and not out of the taxpayer pocket.
Right.
Thank you.
So at this, we secure all the funds, right, between the downtown transportation funds, the funds from Wyndham Regional, the funds from Northern Borders, and the funds from the Chrissy grant. We'll have, I believe, about $2.7 million worth of outside funding, of which we're leveraging with $225,000 worth of local taxpayer money. Right now, that's about where we are in terms of the total project at this point in time on January 16th.
Okay, all right, sounds great, thank you.
Okay, let's move on to approve Form MP1 for the use of VCDP funds. There's a packet there's an item in the packet, and it's required us to sign this.
So in order for us to be eligible, we have to go and approve this list of municipal policies, most of which we already have as our own policies, in our own municipal handbook. But the federal agencies want their specific formatting for things that we might not specifically have. For example, the Violence Against Women Act, which talks about, how you report various law enforcement activity. So these are things we're doing, but it puts all of these things in one document, which we then file with the agency, so that makes you eligible for federal programming, federal funding. There's nothing in here that I can point to that would be something that would be above what we already do in any of our current personnel procedures or policies. It's just how the feds want this to be put together.
It's more a matter of our articulation.
Yeah, and they're very specific too about the various federal requirements, right? Like texting while driving, which is a federal executive order. Whistleblower protections, things that ADA, which we all have compliance with. Those types of things. And really, it's just so that if we're spending CDBG monies, which we do get pass-throughs, and we do apply for monies, that we're not out of compliance with any of the federal requirements.
And Heather presumably has looked at all these HR things, and she's aware of it.
There's never, hasn't been any concerns. And we, most of these things, we have to already, because they're, EEO requirements and other federal requirements, they're part of our normal operating procedures. We just have them in different places, in our handbooks in different places. This puts everything under one form, for lack of a better word. So this NP1 gets filed, and then we're eligible for all the federal programming.
So are we approving, this is approve the form, not,
I think there's actually a signature page.
yeah, there is a signature page for the,
Right.
for board. So we're stuck with that one.
I think the goal is that the board would just authorize the,
So we're actually authorizing MP1 for
Right.
use of CC, not just the form,
correct.
the way it's stated here. So I'll take a
Right.
motion to approve the MP1 for the use of VCDP funds.
So moved.
We hear a second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the MP1 for use of VCDP funds. Any further discussion, questions? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor will say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. And you have the original, so
Aye.
there. Thank you, sir. Send it around, so we got the liquor licenses here anyway, so.
Yep.
Okay, now, let's move on to item number 5, which is discuss the appointment of town animal control officer. From what I understand, we have one person applying, that would like to apply for it. Unfortunately, they're not here to explain, to ask questions of. I would like to ask a few questions, but anyway,
So we have a couple options. You know, our position unfortunately has been vacant since the first of the year. So as Peter said, I did have a local interest expressed, and we can certainly invite that person to a future meeting if that's something we want to have a conversation in more detail. We also have an option to get a contract with the sheriff's office. We did get a copy of the contract, which I think we shared during the budget process, and the board looked at the costs and didn't think that that was a direction that they wanted to pursue at that time, so we didn't take that conversation with the sheriff any further. So,
the sheriff, I think, mentioned this money of $12,000 to cover it.
right.
Where,
We're paying about $1,200 now, right?
Well, we put it in the budget for 2,400.
24.
We changed the stipend from 100 to 200.
So I did have a conversation with the person who's applying and have learned about her current work she does. And the folks, she's been working with our police department and his, and she is has a lot of the equipment and has quite a bit of experience. And I would support her application, and maybe if other board members have any questions, we could invite her to our next meeting. Would you like to do that?
well, yeah, we can probably do that. We
Sure.
anything big on that meeting? Nah. Let's not do it at a joint board.
Yeah, we're going to do it at that meeting. That's going to be.
Do in February.
So Feb. 4?
Yes.
February 4 is our next meeting.
Yeah,
I believe so.
yeah, I believe February 4th is correct.
First Tuesday of the month.
Yep. I don't
Yeah.
remember the.
And a resignation, an official resignation for a previous.
Well, I was just gonna, figure he was gonna follow up on
All right, I just wanted to be
because
sure.
now, it leaves open the tree warden position, because he also was a tree warden.
Right.
And from my understanding, he got his nose all joined about that, so I don't know where we stand with that one, whether there was some mention or the rumor from going around was that Ryan was gonna take it because he has a forestry license.
Right.
So I don't know what's going on, which means do we give him a stipend for that? I don't know where we go from
We
there.
could certainly, I never really approached him formally about that. He's been consulting with some of the major tree work, like around
I
the
know
meeting
with
house
the
and other
cemetery,
places
at
and
the Rockingham
cemetery.
meeting house, he was on that, wasn't he? Was he insulting in there?
Yeah, he had given offered an opinion on it.
Right, yeah, so
Yeah.
that's it, I don't know where we go there, because we currently don't even have a tree warden either, so.
And you've had a face-to-face conversation with our our current animal control officer / tree warden, Scott?
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of.
Oh, yeah.
It's 3 pages to some, 2 pages for another one, but I wrote on there, so just keep going until you find.
At this point,
my
the
scribble.
answer is,
There you go.
He's not interested in continuing.
And as of has any date set for his end of his service?
He was at the end of the last year.
So December 31st, 2023.
And then anyone we appoint now will have to be reappointed in March, correct?
Right.
Typically, we do that as our annual meeting, but yeah, this didn't seem like we could wait for another 2 months to get to that point.
Okay, well, so that's the plan. We'll invite her to the February meeting and go from there.
All right.
Okay, financials. Scott ran some off and handed them all tonight.
Yeah, I apologize for the lateness of the
They were
materials.
on the website, so you can
If you have
look
any
at, I looked at them
questions-
through there, so I had a few questions,
Okay.
but pretty short list for me.
Okay.
Everything looked pretty clean for me, as far as that goes. It looks like we're on track here. But, general fund, page 1 of 13, bank interest is 85,530. How the hell do we get to that point? We've never had, I don't think, that high.
Interest rates have jumped that much?
Yeah.
That's why I don't know.
It hasn't
Or is
jumped that
that
much.
based on the amount of money we've got in the bank?
Right.
I mean,
I don't know if the list is on, but I think that could, I'd have to double check that number, Peter, because that doesn't feel right.
yeah, let's say that. And then, the school funds, they haven't been anything to it. 6? Oh, is that you, Alyssa?
No, she's not on.
Okay. Somebody just.
Sue didn't need a pocket.
Things are rough.
It's not me. It's not me.
You know, somebody pinched you or something there. Okay, then on page 2 of 13, I noticed the town clerk fees are down. I don't know whether she reports them at a later time, and that's when they bump up. I know there's like 41,000 or something on town clerk fees on the revenue section, and I think we budgeted, and they're only about halfway there, so I think.
I'll have to check with Catherine and see if there's something specific that we're lagging.
Yeah, see that town clerk is 40,000, and we're only at 18.5, 18.6. Yeah, page 3 of 13, the theater, cinema looks like they're holding their own there. Now I'll go to page 4 of 13, under expenses, there was an item for $2,000. I'm assuming that's the $2,000 there, because there's a $300 expenditure out of that, 2,000, so I'm assuming it's the survey.
Is that the,
Under the select board, Peter?
Under page 3,
Yeah,
page 4 of 13,
Yeah.
select board expenses.
right,
You see $2,000 there.
right, that's your budget, right.
Right, but I don't believe we had the $2,000 in the budget before, maybe we did, I don't know, but my second question would have been where did the $4,000 come from, or the $2,000 come from?
I think we always had that in there. I think we had like conferences, training, various miscellaneous items that you guys might
Yeah.
want.
Because then there's $300 expended on that, and that's why I
That
wondered.
was Survey Monkey,
That was just the
Survey Monkey.
beginning of the survey.
Okay, well,
There'll be
We
more
still
costs.
have to pay for the printing.
yeah, I know.
Right.
and the mailing?
Do we get credit for all the returns that we got upstairs in the town clerk's office? I'm serious.
There's a bunch.
She's got a batch of them up there. She showed me this morning. They came back.
Apparently quite a few came back, and when I talked to Kathleen, she thought the
Not
reason was.
misaddressed, but they were evidently on the checklist, and those people have been challenged, and they're no longer on the checklist, not residents.
But they show up on the list
So
as
they
a
showed up on
C
the
next
list,
to
so
their
everybody
name,
got
apparently,
one.
but they
But then
still show up
came
on the
back
list.
Because people returned and said, we're not residents. Give them credit for being,
Well,
honest.
that's for her, that's a problem with her list then.
Be it as it may, they usually, before the vote, we always have the BCA goes in
And looks at the
and
names.
challenges, anybody the whole list.
Right.
So, I just mentioned that she showed them to me, so.
No, we don't get any money back.
All right. Let's see. There's just social services, 5 of them that haven't taken any money. That's on page 9 to 13. There's 5 people with zeros there. There's money appropriated, but they haven't taken it. Does that mean
Before that some of those go.
does that mean that they don't need it? There's some more cuts.
Yeah, I don't know why, I don't know why they're not all
Well, yeah,
authorized
Parks
at
Place,
once.
I'm surprised they haven't come in and taken theirs. Adult Learning, sometimes they take theirs at the last minute. And Greater Falls Justice Center, I don't know why they haven't taken it. And then you've got Greater Falls Connections. And Jim Tree was here, back, we discussed about using that, but I don't know why that's,
Yeah, I don't
they
know, I'm
haven't
not
taken
sure.
that money.
That's a good question, Peter. I mean, if they're not taking it,
Yeah,
do we need to be
well,
appropriating it?
you know, then you go,
Peter, this is Susan. Peter? It could be due to their fiscal year. They may have a different fiscal year and they may want to take it in the next fiscal year.
I understand that, I just questioned it because there's just zeros, and we've had that before on some others, and I know that others take it a little bit at a time, so it doesn't, you know, I don't know why they do it that way, but neither did Alyssa, so. But yeah, that's probably the point, I just bring it up because it was interesting that there are 5 of them. We already talked about the tree warden thing, so.
Right.
And what is the digital radio match?
That's part of our 3-way, working on with police, fire, and DPW on
That's
the
what the
upgrade.
mountain thing to the town,
With the
they
tower.
ran the problems with that.
Right, with the antenna and then the new digital radios that are compliant.
Some of that's grant money too. so.
Correct.
Wow, big number.
And when is the town hall renovation bond up? That's 140.
There's 2 more payments.
2 more,
November
okay,
this
it was
year,
sort of
November
25 or
25.
26, okay.
So we are done as of November 25.
And then under highway, page 105, that July 21 FEMA money, you talked a little bit about that earlier. Are we still hanging on that, and how much are we waiting on? You know,
I believe we're still waiting on our category Z, which we had submitted. That's still outstanding. And then all the most recent, for July of this year, we don't have any reimbursements yet on that work, so.
okay.
Judging how long it took the other, to get the other one.
That's
Took us about 10 years to get that one.
Yeah, don't hold your breath.
Okay, that's all I got. Anybody else see anything that stuck out? I don't know, everything else looked like we're on target, so.
Yeah.
Through the year. Okay, let's go down, continue the agenda here. Review and approve orders, bills, and warrants. I don't see any here,
No, didn't bring it down.
so
Nope.
no problem. We'll get them next time around.
Yep.
Agenda items for February 2024 meeting. We've got time to play with that one.
Yep.
But we will know that we'll have to ratify the items that we approved tonight because of the 48-hour notice, so.
And talk about getting
It'll just be simple one-line signature to
control.
approve, to ratify the vote on the liquor control and the times of warning and the application for a BRIC grant and all that, so it'll be pretty simple, we'll work right through those. Agenda items for January 30th, tri-board meeting.
We'll definitely have the fire feasibility update. Ridwig wants to give a presentation.
Who?
Ridwig.
Again?
The listers want to give an update as well as talk about
Yeah,
the
that's gonna be,
reappraisal process, because we are above
Yeah.
our COD, so we're
Yeah.
gonna, that triggers a whole series of events, so I want Paul to come and speak to you guys about that as well. So he'll be here, and we're gonna take a first look at where we are with delinquencies for potential tax sale.
Should we talk about the survey?
The survey for town meeting? Yes, we can put that on as an agenda item for sure.
everyone's aware that the committee has been formed to think about town meeting improvements.
Yeah, right.
And David, you all got the email, we've been invited to that.
Yeah,
Peter,
but only
That's
two
the
of us.
24th. Yeah, I first remember because there's a quorum situation, but I read the open meeting law handbook again, and it says if you're going, if a quorum shows up at a public meeting, as long as they don't discuss any town business, that's fine.
oh, good.
But the question becomes, is town meeting, town business?
It
It is actually, when you
Yeah,
don't think of
yeah,
it.
it is.
And your survey is also town business, because the town, we voted to do it, and we also voted money.
So only two of us should go.
Only two should.
All right, so
I mean,
Bonnie and I presumably,
We should probably go, because we,
well, you guys were leading the charge on the survey.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of angst out there with that from what I've been hearing, but then again, you've heard something anyway, so you know.
some of it.
The saga goes on.
And just to clarify, that is a meeting that's being held at the library.
Right, yeah.
Right.
And
24th February.
24th of February, what time?
10:30 to noon, I think I said, I saw.
I think that's it.
was, yeah.
Yeah, that Laurel Green and is leading the charge on that
Proctor,
one.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just made her
And that'll be
aware
a
of that,
presentation to,
I saw
the
it.
quorum
and-
thing.
yeah, and that would be a presentation to explain to voters how town meeting works and just help them understand the process.
Yeah.
And ideas for, I think they're gonna wanna talk about ideas for improvement or change, improving attendance and participation. I think Laurel and her group have been brainstorming that.
Okay. Other business. There is an article there about traffic issues we will get into. It's an FYI article that is in your packet. But to get back to that, why do you have any other business?
No.
No. The only thing I have is like reading the cemetery committee meetings and on your agenda, the next agenda, you have an RFP or developing an RFP for the lawn mowing and stuff. I don't know how, that has to come to the board, that can't be, I don't.
Well, I think it would
Kinda
be,
getting out of your own
it would
there.
be a recommendation to the board for updates for the mowing RFP. It wouldn't, we couldn't approve it, the board would have to approve it.
Yeah.
Well, generally, the manager takes care of the RFP, the board doesn't have to approve an RFP, it's an RFP that gets sent out.
I think they want to look at a change in the scope of service, so we haven't set out a request yet to do an update on the mowing contract, so if there's going to be any discussion, now would be the time.
Right.
We probably will send it out sometime in
That's
March.
18th too, I think, isn't it? That's this week, Thursday, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
Yeah,
So. All right. Don't think I have anything else. Bonnie?
No, I think I sent everybody our responses so far to the survey, you could take a look at it. So far, it's pretty much split. How many people want to have in-person meeting, how many want to have ballot only. But interestingly, out of about 98 people who actually took the time to write a comment, 77 want a weekend or Saturday meeting. That seems to be the
an
one
interesting
big
number.
thing that's really standing out so far.
I've heard from that from a lot of people too.
Yeah. So anyway, that's it. There'll be more.
More discussion of that.
Well, that's interesting in the fact that you're gonna have the meeting on, and vote on all money articles. If it is an in-person meeting, if that's how it turns out. But then you're gonna come back on another week, another day or two on, and vote for your officers.
Right.
That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Why we're doing two things instead of doing it all at once.
You don't do it one day, you do it Monday night. and
Yeah, no, we do it Monday night and pass all the articles and we vote Tuesday.
You just do it Saturday, pass one articles and vote Tuesday.
Whatever, I'm just bringing that up, just a point of discussion. Rick, you have anything?
Yeah, safety issue with Square, are we gonna talk about that now or later?
It's right here.
It's on there,
Okay.
that's the next item, I just
Okay,
wanted,
good.
in case
Yeah, no,
anybody
that's
had
what,
anything else.
that's what it's on my list.
All right. That being said,
Could we, Jamie, I think had one more question, Rick, or Rick, I'm sorry. Peter, I
Who?
think.
Jamie?
Jamie had his hand up, I'm sorry, Jamie.
No worries. So just before we move on from the survey, Bonnie just made a statement that it's pretty much split right now from the responses out of 90 something. However, you say that 77 people or something want to change the date of it. So if we're looking at in broadcasting, it's a split.
Hello?
wait a minute, let him finish his thing.
Wait,
No,
Mr.
no.
Chairman.
No, I'm good. I'm just when you say 90 something responses and 77 of them are in favor of changing the day of the vote or the town meeting, but it's split so far with the survey results. I'm just confused there.
Okay, so we've had, as of this afternoon, 228 people take the survey online. There were 98 people who bothered to write a comment response at the end. Out of the 98 people, as I said, who bothered to write a comment response, 77 of those wanted a Saturday or weekend meet.
Okay, understood. Yeah. So did we actually get lease size straightened out with being able to post surveys? Did we get to the
Yes.
bottom?
Yeah,
Yes, we did.
Somebody had picked them up and put them on a shelf behind the meat counter for some reason.
Okay, and just one last question. I know that everyone is concerned that the school board is going first this year, and it's going to be late because of 30 articles on there. What is going to be like the timeline of reporting out on the results of the survey? Because I know you had said in previous meetings that you were looking at reporting out on the results. I'm just wondering, what does that report out look like? Is it?
It would probably come in under other business, which is the last article that's not concerning any expenditure of funds.
Okay, well, Bonnie said she wasn't going to be able to stay up that late, so I just,
I didn't say I was joking, I'll be there. But,
There's also, Jamie, there's a meeting on February on the 24th at the library, 10:30 to noon, I believe it is. And they're going to discuss the same situation there, so you might be able to get some input there if you don't want to stay up to the meeting.
and once we close the survey, I know I had sent you a couple pages of the results. Once we close it, I will be able to download a document, and this will be everything that's online. And it will probably be about 25, 26 pages document. And I will have them post that on the town website right away.
no, and again, I appreciate all the efforts. I just didn't know what it was going to look like for a report out when we got to town meeting, but understand other business. So, all right, thank you.
One other clarification is that we're not gonna be voting on anything about the town meeting that night. We're simply exchange of information and education, voter education. And that's what the purpose of the survey is, to gather ideas and engage public sentiment.
Okay, there's no need for the executive session, so let's go on to the other business FYI that we have in our packet.
I got a couple things just to start. So obviously, it was an unfortunate and tragic event. We had a pedestrian fatality in our downtown, so that's always a point of concern and lots of issues surrounding that specific incident. But I think there's a couple of things that I think if the board wants to start to look at options that might make our downtown more pedestrian friendly. The last speed studies that I have go back to July of 2020. So, and the locations that they took them aren't necessarily helpful to where this incident occurred. Obviously, it was right in front of Town Hall here. The last two that I have was, Rockingham Street near the Legion, which is a little bit distant from where this incident occurred. So one of the things that I think I would recommend to the board is that we get a hold of Wyndham Regional and see if we can do an updated study, but look at Westminster Street, not necessarily looking at it in closer proximity to our location here, as opposed to, up at the Legion, and I think they also did some speed studies up near the library as well, which have some importance, but I think if you were trying to figure out where, the speeds in the square itself, those might not necessarily give you the information that you might be looking for in terms of what other types of traffic control or options you might want to pursue.
Scott and Peter, the Walk Bike Committee, our charge is to work on improved pedestrian bicycle safety and infrastructure. I talked to our chairman, Marcia Stern, and would it be helpful for us to analyze, people have dozens of ideas about what can be done to improve the safety. Someone needs to analyze that and get back to this board after doing some study. The Walk Bike Committee would seem to be that's part of our mission, would seem to be a logical entity to work with maybe Glenn, the highway superintendent, and you, Scott, and sort through some of these ideas and possibilities, studies. Does that make any sense?
There's a lot, if they require engineering or other design features, I think that's really important because the board is going to start, we're talking about with the downtown design committee, and there's lots of inputs, right, which is positive. I don't mean this to sound negative, about how do we design the islands, which also have pedestrian impacts and how those work. And now we have an indication here of how are we looking at our crosswalks, and are there other engineering things we can do, or other lighting improvements, or other improvements that we can look at that might help resolve some of those concerns. So I think all of those in context are important, and certainly would be something we'd want to work through. And I think it's helpful if the committee had a hand in that before it came to the full board. I'm sure the board would still want to have a conversation and engage in this, but it would at least get some of the work done before it came to the board in some form.
Yeah, I think we would be willing to invest it in, well, first of all, this has to live somewhere. I mean, it's either on your desk, it's on the committee's desk, it's on the select board's desk, and I propose that the Walk Bike Committee is a really good place. You've got people who give a lot of thought to these kinds of things and can analyze what other towns are doing, which is really important work. And I don't know if you want to take that on, but if we were to take that research component on and work with Glenn Schreider and you perhaps, just to sit down and brainstorm, look what other towns are doing, and saying what Rutland's had done with that work in Bellows Falls, et cetera. Now, if you would want us to do that kind of work, and I'm saying to the board as well. If not, we're glad to step back. We've got lots of other projects.
Well, the business, I think that's a good forum for having those conversations, but I also think that BIFTA and some of the other merchants and some of those folks should be part of those conversations as well. They were part of the conversations in some of the materials I gave to you this evening, so it's sort of a continuation of a long discussion, right? And some changes have been made, and the changes were things change back, so we might be at a point where maybe we have to look at making changes again.
Elijah, do you have any BIFTA input on this?
Well, I think that BIFTA certainly be extremely interested in this, because this is something that so very directly impacts all of our member businesses and residents of the downtown that we also represent. So I definitely think that we want to be very closely involved in any of these discussions. As far as a need to look at improvements, yesterday at 11:30 in the morning, I almost became another statistic myself.
Really?
Because
you like you beat by a day or two. I was a step away from getting nailed myself.
Really?
I was at the crosswalk right up here at the town hall, like, normally don't use the crosswalk, I usually cut across if there's no traffic, but for some reason or other, I decided, no, I better go across the crosswalk. I went between those two pillars, took one step, and if I did another step, I'd have been probably down the other end of the square.
What happened to you, Elijah?
Well, in my case, it's 11:30 in the morning, clear, bright day, dry road. I step out into the crosswalk, someone comes, whipping around. They should have had a completely clear view of me. They had lots of time to stop, and they skidded to a stop, like 3 feet from my knees. So that's not a good experience.
No.
Is there, well, there's an enforcement element here, is there or not?
I've been told they're working on something, but I don't want to expose it to the public and let them in on something that's going on.
All right.
I think let them find out when they get a ticket handed.
Okay,
That's the best way.
all right.
If we warn them, they'll forearmed is forearmed, and then all of a sudden the things will calm down, but then they'll come back again, because there's definitely too much racing through the square. I mean, you sit there and you watch, and their car goes zooming through there, and and the speed limit thing is scotches that pack in the packet. That doesn't work. But the merchants complain because it was too slow, or they're getting too many speeding tickets. And they won't come back into town because they're getting a speeding ticket. Well, go sit down Saxon River someday, and it's just as bad out there.
And the police have been.
Probably worse.
I'd love to sit down there with a hairdryer and just make people think I'm doing a radar check.
Yeah.
I've seen 3
Just for
arrests
grins and
now,
chuckles.
3 stops down there in the past week.
Yeah, so.
And so the sheriff contract is working.
Where, in Texas?
Saxon River.
Oh, wow.
But I think at a minimum, I will go ahead and engage Wunderbar Regional to get some updated.
Yep.
I can see if we can get something done there.
Which I think is helpful, because I think, that data also came during COVID, which is probably not a real true indication of traffic patterns today, to be honest with you. Things were not, that was not a normal period.
Mine was also.
Yeah, I think you need to get that, because
10 o'clock. And I had 2 witnesses. If I knew
you're
what Sean saw,
lowering
what
the
happened.
speed limit is just not
A friend of mine
effective,
called it
you
out.
know?
To me, he was coming out of J&H, said, boy, that was a
But,
close one.
If you wanna do bump outs or any kind of things, you're gonna need money. So you
Right.
need that speed study
Yeah.
to prove that it really is an issue. not
Which
just-
again, I think relates to
perception.
that broader conversation of trying to bring in the downtown folks that have been working on some of these issues, what the grant opportunities might be as well, so we can try to maximize some of those, and then
Right,
there might be other things that we're not even considering. I think, as Rick said, it might be worth us looking around and seeing ideas that maybe
Yeah,
might be
other towns
helpful.
in-
I think Jamie had a question, I think.
Okay, I've got one more question too.
Yep.
Let Jamie go.
Jamie, did you have a question? I'm sorry.
Well, I just wanted to add to this. So one of it sounds like enforcement needs to be stepped up. And I understand business owners may say it drives away business, but if you go through Charlestown, New Hampshire, or Chester, that they're going to be out there. So you slow down and you do the speed limit and you do the right thing. Also, of course, I grew up in the Northeast Kingdom up in Newport, Vermont, and every sidewalk in their town, the outside lines are a high vis, a lot of glitter glass added to their crosswalk lines, but the center of the crosswalk is a completely different color. So you have the 2 outside white lines that show that that's a crosswalk, but that added color, anywhere that you drive up there, you can see it from a long ways off. It's not just the reflective that helps you. It just stands out in the road versus just having some white lines out there. And
you can't very, very well, you really can't.
but
Hanover, New Hampshire, they have those flashing signals at pretty much every crosswalk. So you have to hit those, some of them motion detected, and you can go across, and I think they're all solar operated, they're not electrical.
right, but we're doing in the town, we're doing our own crosswalk painting. So a couple extra gallons of paint to really offset the crosswalk might be a real quick and easy way to do that, just to start to see if it makes a difference, right? because then you're seeing it from a lot further distance. But just wanted to add that. Thank you.
That's a good idea, Jamie. We are actually going to be painting the sidewalk that goes in back of the parking lot or in front of the parking lot with a different color. We've had a lot of discussion about what that color should be, but I agree that a different color, a lot of times they use a bright sort of lime green, so you know when you're in that crosswalk, and the drivers presumably know it.
Well, that's what's recommended when you look at that MUTCD, so for all the markings for, federal and other highways. That's why when you see those, shared bike paths, that's that bright fluorescent green color.
Yep.
That's what that is signifying, so.
Right. One further question, the Vermont State Police did an accident recreation or.
They do a reconstruction.
Where will that information go? And also the name of the person involved? Usually when we have a fender bender that's getting reformed and that said name withheld, why are we withholding that name?
I think it's the time because of the condition of the person. So I'm not sure all the notifications were completed.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the state police usually, when they're done with an accident reconstruction, those results go back to the police. If there's any additional charges or other issues that arise from that, then they'll work through that.
Okay, so that data may come to us, the select board, through the police department to you?
At some point, there'll be some information through there.
Okay.
Was the gentleman in the crosswalk when he said?
No,
We don't know.
No.
I was told he wasn't in the crosswalk.
Until we get a report, we don't.
So he was jaywalking, basically.
Yeah.
Did you notice the person that almost got you was on the phone? Because I noticed a lot of times, I wasn't able to tell, they're yapping on that phone, and there's
Certainly a possibility.
Yeah, I don't know, I didn't tell.
To be honest.
Shoot, whoever it was by me before I even could take a look and see whether I could drive, and I don't know if it was a woman or a guy, I don't know. I don't think she even saw me, or even tended to look for anybody crossing the road, she just blinders on, just going.
Jeez.
So, anyway, the other thing I'll just bring up, I got this email to me, the Senior Solutions Community Partner Survey. It's basically general questions like, do you know who we are and things like that? Do you know what we do? What can we better get connected with your people? So I just came to the senior center and things like that where they should maybe get their information, or maybe hold a once a month meeting. People come in and take advantage of stuff, and I think they're out of Springfield too, so. So
I think
anyway.
Betsy had a question, Peter, real quick.
Go.
That's Betsy. I think you have to take your mute off, Betsy.
Hi, can you hear me? Sorry, there's too
Yes.
many buttons. Video, gotta lower my hand. Thank you, Jamie, for that suggestion. I think that would be a really easy, quick, inexpensive way to address the lack of visibility on the crosswalks. I think that's really all I want to say now. I definitely want to be involved. It's really unfortunate what has happened. I live and work here now, so I am crossing that crosswalk, especially at the town hall, multiple times a day, and I'm kind of scared multiple times a day. But I think we really have to, as people driving and walking, just understand that, let's make sure everybody sees us. Like the drivers see you in getting ready to cross, and that when you're driving, that you recognize that there's pedestrians. So I think it's not a given thing that people will stop anymore. So
True.
thank you.
Thanks.
Yep, thank you.
So we all set? If there's no further business to be discussed, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion's made and seconded, adjourn. All those in favor would say aye. Aye. Sue, did you adjourn already?